My name is Varsha Ramakrishnan, and over the summer of 2013, I received a grant from the Pulitzer Center for Crisis Reporting to investigate the issue of dowry violence in India. Weddings in India are steeped in tradition and in culture. In Hinduism, there are multiple rules and religious requirements that need to be fulfilled in order to sanctify and recognize a marriage. One of the traditions that have been passed down in time is the system of dowry. The dowry was initially a way to help a bride be financially independent after going to her husband's home. Today, however, it is a way for a groom to extort money from a young bride and her family. I came across victims of dowry violence for the first time as a second-year medical student. I always noticed that the female burns ward was full and the male ward almost always empty. I found out that all these women were victims of dowry violence, some with even 92% burns and more. It was on that day that I knew I had to find a way to tell their stories. After speaking to multiple NGOs, lawyers, academic researchers, doctors, and social workers, I began to get a clearer picture of dowry violence for what it was. Most Indian women pay a groom price or a dowry when they get married. It cuts across all socioeconomic classes. A dowry could be in the form of cash, a motorbike, cooking utensils, electronics, or even a new bed and furnishing. The issue of dowry violence, however, begins when the husband and in-laws get greedy for more. They begin torturing the young bride physically and emotionally because she hasn't brought with her an adequate dowry. In the next few minutes, I'd like to tell you the stories of three women who have had to suffer in silence till today. This is Meera. She is 43 and lives in Rajokri, a small village in New Delhi. 20 years ago, she was set alight alive by her husband because she hadn't brought enough of a dowry with her. Meera has had to have 3 surgeries to reconstruct her face, lower lip, and neck. 6 months after returning from the hospital, she was thrown out of her house because her husband had a new woman in the house. He also said he found her too ugly to stay with her. This is Saraswati. She lives in the same village as Meera. Saraswati was beaten almost every day by her husband. He said she was worthless, hadn't even brought enough of a dowry. He walked out on her and her 3 children a few years ago. She now works as a security guard in a mall to get her 3 children through university. And then when I began to think this was a purely rural, lower socioeconomic strata phenomenon, I met Pooja. Pooja is a young executive in her late 20s at a leading health insurance firm in New Delhi. She is young, vivacious, intelligent, and has a lot going for her. 3 years ago, she filed for a divorce from her husband because her in-laws and husband were constantly throwing her out of the house and emotionally abusing her. The reason they gave was that she hadn't brought enough dowry with her. Bride burning and other forms of dowry violence is an underreported crime in India. Meera lied to the police that she had accidentally burnt herself because her husband threatened to take away the children if she told the truth. Saraswati has no time to go to the courts to follow up the case. Pooja's case hasn't been taken seriously in the New Delhi police stations. In India, one woman is killed every 60 minutes, every hour, for a dowry, according to the National Crime Records Bureau in 2012. Social taboos make it better for an Indian man to kill his wife, get a new dowry with remarriage, and divorce her. Although there are laws in the country that have declared dowry giving or even taking illegal, this is still a practice that remains a prevalent social evil. The practice of dowry colors all stages of an Indian woman's life. The birth of a girl is seen as a burden because a family needs to save up for her. Many girls are killed at birth because a family cannot go into further debt. For the surviving little girls, poor nutrition, abuse, and illiteracy remain problems, especially in rural areas. Many people work tirelessly on this issue in India, but until the system of dowry becomes an issue that is dealt with seriously by policy and law enforcement personnel, it will remain a dark smudge that mars the life of every Indian woman.